How does a company worth $80 billion, a company that defined an entire era of mobile communication, simply vanish from the top? This isn't just a story about a failed product, it's a story about a choice. The fall of BlackBerry wasn't a technological failure, it was a human one. It was a conscious decision to choose comfort over chaos, stability over disruption, and it cost them everything. Let's rewind to the mid-2000s. If you were important, you had a BlackBerry. It was the undisputed king. Walk into any boardroom, any government office, any Wall Street trading floor, and you'd hear it. The subtle click-clack of thumbs flying across a physical, QWERTY keyboard. This wasn't just a phone, it was a status symbol, an indispensable tool for the world's most powerful people. They were nicknamed crackberries for a reason. Their secure servers, instant email delivery through BlackBerry Messenger, and legendary reliability made them the gold standard for enterprise. At its peak in 2008, Research in Motion, or RIM, the company behind BlackBerry, was valued at over $80 billion. It was the most valuable company in Canada, controlling nearly half of the entire US smartphone market. They were on top of the world. Then, on January 9th, 2007, everything changed. Steve Jobs walked onto a stage and introduced the world to the iPhone. It had no physical keyboard, just a giant, beautiful touchscreen. It wasn't a work tool, it was a window to the internet. It played music, showed videos, and browsed the web like a real computer. Back at RIM's headquarters, the executives weren't just unimpressed, they were dismissive. Co-CEO Jim Balsillie famously said, "It's kind of one more entrant into an already very busy space." They looked at the iPhone and saw its flaws. A weak battery, a fragile glass screen, and a reliance on AT&T's spotty network. Most importantly, they saw a toy for consumers, not a serious tool for business. They believed their fortress, built on corporate security and reliable email, was impenetrable. They couldn't have been more wrong. The critical mistake BlackBerry made was in how they defined the battlefield. They thought the war was about hardware and security. They saw the iPhone as just another device, so their response was to make better devices. They would improve their keyboards, strengthen their encryption, and extend their battery life. They were fighting the last war. What they failed to grasp was that Apple wasn't just launching a phone, they were launching an ecosystem. The iPhone wasn't the product, it was the portal. The real product was the App Store, which launched a year later in 2008. This was the paradigm shift. Suddenly, a phone wasn't just for calls and emails, it was a platform. It could be a gaming console, a movie theater, a bank, a GPS navigator, a social network. This explosion of software possibilities was something BlackBerry was completely unprepared for. Their entire corporate culture, led by the engineering-focused Mike Lazaridis and the sales-driven Jim Balsillie, was built around creating a perfect closed system. They controlled the hardware, the software, and the network. Opening up their platform to thousands of unknown third-party developers felt like chaos. It was a threat to the very stability and security that defined their brand. While Apple and soon Google's Android were building bustling digital cities filled with millions of apps, BlackBerry was content to polish the walls of its isolated, albeit very secure fortress. The market, however, had made its choice. The line between work and personal life was blurring. Executives who used a BlackBerry at the office were going home and playing with their kids' iPhones. They started asking, "Why can't my work phone do this?" The consumer market, which BlackBerry had ignored, was now dictating the future of the enterprise market. RIM's attempts to adapt were disastrously late and clumsy. Their first answer to the iPhone was the BlackBerry Storm, launched in 2008. It was a touchscreen device, but instead of a smooth glass surface, the entire screen was a single clickable button. It was meant to mimic the tactile feel of their famous keyboards. Users hated it. It was buggy, slow, and a complete commercial failure. Verizon, its exclusive carrier, had to replace nearly every single unit sold. Then came the Playbook tablet in 2011, their answer to the iPad. In a truly baffling decision, it launched without a native email or calendar app, the two things BlackBerry was most famous for. To get your email, you had to connect it to a BlackBerry phone. It was a device that was fundamentally incomplete, a symbol of a company that had lost its way. All the while, their market share was in a free fall. From nearly 50% in the US, it plummeted into the single digits. Developers abandoned the platform in droves. Why build an app for a dying ecosystem when you could reach hundreds of millions of users on iOS and Android? The losses were catastrophic. It wasn't just about money, though the valuation collapse from 80 billion to under 5 billion was staggering. They lost market leadership. They lost the trust of consumers. They lost their entire developer community. The brand that was once a synonym for innovation and status became a punchline, a relic of a bygone era. They had a 10-year head start on the competition and squandered it in less than 5. So what's the real lesson here? The fall of BlackBerry is a timeless cautionary tale for any leader, any company, any individual. It teaches us that success can breed arrogance and that past performance is no guarantee of future results. BlackBerry's leaders were brilliant men, but they were blinded by their own success. They loved the product they had built so much that they couldn't see the world was changing around them. They chose to protect their existing empire, rather than venturing into the unknown. They chose incremental improvements over radical innovation. They chose the comfort of what they knew over the chaos of what was next. In the end, the choice between comfort and change isn't really a choice at all. One leads to slow, certain decline. The other is the only path to survival. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the decisions that shape our world.